$100,000 used to mean something. It meant you made it. Not billionaire rich, not private jet rich, but comfortable. A house in the suburbs, a decent car in the driveway, groceries without checking the price tag, maybe even a vacation once a year. For decades, that number lived quietly in people's heads as the line between doing okay and doing really well. Today, in many cities, a $100,000 salary feels weirdly tight. Not poor, but not comfortable either. Rent still hurts, savings feel slow, and the credit card somehow keeps showing up again. Which raises a strange question. How can someone earn 6 figures and still feel broke? To answer that, we need to walk through a very quiet financial shift that's been happening for years. One that doesn't show up in headlines, but shows up every time you open your bank app. Let's start with the number itself, $100,000. It sounds huge, mostly because our brains are still using a mental model built decades ago. In 1990, a $100,000 salary was rare. Adjusted for inflation, that's roughly the equivalent of about $230,000 today. In other words, the cultural meaning of 6 figures never updated. The number stayed the same, but the economy around it doubled. Yet people still hear 100K and imagine financial breathing room. Now let's see where that money actually goes. Imagine someone earning $100,000 in a major metro area. First comes taxes: federal income tax, state tax in many states, Social Security, Medicare. Before the paycheck even arrives, roughly 25 to 35% disappears, depending on the state. That turns $100,000 into something closer to $65,000 to $75,000 take-home. Already, the 6-figure fantasy is shrinking. Now, housing enters the story. Housing is the single largest expense for most households, and over the past 20 years, it has moved very differently than wages. In many major cities, rents have doubled or even tripled. A typical one-bedroom apartment in places like Los Angeles, New York, or Seattle can easily run $2,500 to $3,500 per month. Let's take the lower end. $2,800 per month. That's $33,600 a year. Almost half of take-home pay. Gone. And we haven't even bought groceries yet. Next comes health care. In the United States, employer health insurance often still requires monthly premiums, copays, and deductibles. For many workers, that can easily add up to $4,000 to $8,000 out of pocket. Then transportation, car payments, insurance, fuel, maintenance. Owning a car in America often costs between $8,000 and $12,000 a year once everything is added together. Now we're stacking numbers. Housing, about $34,000, healthcare, about $6,000, transportation, about $10,000. That's $50,000 already. Remember our take-home range earlier, roughly $70,000, which means over 2/3 of net income may already be spoken for by 3 categories. And we still haven't talked about food, student loans, childcare, internet, utilities, clothing, or saving for retirement. Suddenly, the math starts to look uncomfortable. But the deeper story isn't just inflation. It's something economists sometimes call lifestyle anchoring. Every generation builds its expectations based on the lives they saw growing up. Many people who earn $100,000 today grew up watching middle-class households survive on far less income. But those households were operating in a completely different price system. In the 1980s and 90s, housing often cost 3 times annual income. Today, in many cities, homes cost 8 to 10 times annual income. College tuition has risen more than 3 times faster than inflation over the past 40 years. Healthcare costs have followed a similar trajectory. In other words, the most important things in modern life have become disproportionately expensive, and wages didn't keep up. This creates a strange illusion. Income numbers look bigger, but purchasing power quietly shrinks. Now add one more layer: social comparison. The internet has created a constant feed of what looks like normal life. Vacations in Italy, new kitchens, perfect apartments, designer furniture. But many of those lifestyles are financed, not earned. Credit cards, buy now and pay later, 7-year car loans, 30-year mortgages stretched to the limit. Which means someone earning $100,000 isn't just competing with real incomes. They're competing with borrowed lifestyles. And the pressure slowly builds. You upgrade apartments because everyone else seems to. You upgrade the car because the old one feels embarrassing. You upgrade the phone, the gym, the streaming services. None of these decisions individually seem reckless, but stacked together, they quietly consume the margin that once made middle-class life feel stable. Then there's one final piece that rarely gets discussed: time. A $100,000 salary today often lives in industries located in expensive cities, tech hubs, financial centers, consulting corridors. Those places offer opportunity, but they also come with the highest cost structures in the entire country. The very jobs that pay 6 figures exist in environments designed to absorb those 6 figures. It's like pouring water into sand. The income rises and the ecosystem around it rises faster. So the paycheck feels large on paper, but small in practice. And this leads to a psychological shift. People stop measuring wealth by income. They start measuring it by breathing room. How many months could you live without income? How much can you invest after expenses? How flexible is your life? For many 6-figure earners today, the answers are surprisingly thin. Which leads to a quiet realization. The 6-figure milestone was never meant to be the finish line. It was just a number that survived long after the economy that created it disappeared. And that raises a bigger question. If $100,000 no longer represents financial security, what number does? Or maybe the real question isn't the number at all. Maybe the real question is whether the system quietly redefines enough faster than most people can ever catch up.